Thank you for listening to this recorded webinar about Dance USA's Fellowship to Artists, an initiative made possible through the support of the Doris Duke Charitable Foundation. My name is Howard Wong, Director of Regranting at Dance USA. In this video, you will hear about the overall program, including its 3 components, as well as how to complete your letter of inquiry. If you do intend to apply, please read the full guidelines available on the Dance USA website. Let's get started. The program itself has 3 components. Its chief component, around which most of the resources are developed, is to provide fellowships to artists to support their creative and social change work. And that will be work that impacts one or more communities. As the second element, Dance USA will be providing a resource support network to the fellows during the fellowship period. And then finally, fellows will have the option to help design and or participate in fellowship initiatives during the fellowship period. The program, which we call DFA, offers direct support to individual artists who have developed a sustained and intentional practice of working through dance and movement-based modalities to address social change. DFA will fund 30 one-year fellowships of a minimum of $30,000 per awarded artist. Fellowship funds can be used at the artist's discretion. Awarded fellows are not required to complete a project with the financial award. There will be some travel and or virtual event attendance requirements, and DFA will cover costs of travel and access. So what do we mean by art for social change? We have used here a definition that we've adapted by the Leeway Foundation in Philadelphia, and Leeway has been doing this work for a long time. Art for social change is work that intentionally affects and engages communities in terms of the artist's practice. The notion of art for social change will be integral to their ideas and their goals and the way in which they conduct their practice of creating and sharing their art. There should be an intentional analysis or review from the artist's perspective of what that issue is and how to address it in communities, which might be in more traditional settings or it may take place in a range of settings and locations. There's a lot of text on this slide about impacts, but art for social change can have so many different kinds of impacts. Primarily, I'll highlight 3 things here, and please note that the full list of this is also on the DFA website. If you're struggling to take notes, just note that a text transcription is available to this webinar, and the slideshow itself will be available for download as well. Number 1 is that it creates a space for expression in some sense of community building among the audience or audiences or communities with whom the artist is connecting and engaging. Second is that this art for social change work might be a strategy or tool or mechanism to create movement and address one of a host of very many issues in our society that are in need of addressing. Frankly, whether they're racism, classism, sexism, or claiming a traditional practice, or just altering something about how we think about ourselves or the world. And this brings me to my third point about traditional practices, which is what we want to be clear that oftentimes the mere fact that culturally specific artists and cultural bearers continue to work is in and of itself, challenging beliefs, shifting perceptions of power, and thus a form of social change. If you are looking for specific examples of artists that this program seeks to support, our recommendation is to take a look into the 31 artists that received the fellowship award in the first round cycle of this program. In addition, writers to create 11 articles to take an in-depth look about the background, practice, and vision of our first round fellows. You can find a list of artists at www.danceusa.org/DFA-fellows. That's www.danceusa.org/DFA-fellows. You can also find the 11 articles at www.danceusa.org/DFA article series. That's www.danceusa.org/DFA-article-series. In terms of the fellowship amounts, Dance USA will be offering 30 one-year fellowship of a minimum of $30,000 per awarded artist, with a total allocation of at least $1 million. Now, let's talk about eligibility to apply. First, you need to be a dance or movement-based artist based anywhere in the US, in its territories, and a US citizen or a permanent resident. Your practice needs to be dedicated to directly and meaningfully addressing the needs of one or more communities, and your work with communities needs to demonstrate respectful, ethical, and committed relationship with communities with which your work is in dialogue. There are 3 elements here that we don't consider competitive in this program. The first will be artists whose practice mainly takes place in college environments because that artist is, say, a full-time college professor who creates work solely or almost solely on their students. The second will be artists whose work is not tied to social change. And the third, artists who like to explore a particular social justice issue or do some research for a new work that they're creating, but they don't have that prior experience with the community or who that issue directly affects. In this scenario, the artist would not be competitive. Let's take a few minutes to look at the review criteria, because these are the yardsticks by which the panel will be making their decisions. The criteria are commitment, clarity, cultural integrity, and disruption. The first thing the panel will be looking at is the level of commitment to a community. The panelists might ask, what are the track record of your practice to demonstrate your commitment to a population, issue, and or a place? And to what degree do you show accountability for how your work contributes to change? How strong is the commitment to engaging the interest of community partners and or its intended participants? Second, clarity. Panels will be looking to see the clarity of artistry and the articulation of how your work uplifts visions of justice, dismantles systems of oppression, facilitates care and healing, or more. So to explain that a bit further, panels will be looking to see if you are clear on what your intent and visions are as an artist. They'll be sussing out the degree to which your social change is intentional within your practice rather than something occasional or incidental. Third, in terms of cultural integrity, it's important that you demonstrate that your work with communities is governed by ethical practice that shows awareness of power, privilege, and cultural context. How are these questions explored within your practice, for example? Fourth, how does your work questions norm, disrupts dominant culture, shifts perceptions of power, dynamics, models new forms of actions, or more? In what ways does your work break away from established practices, either social or artistic? Or does it disrupt dominant systems by supporting traditional expressions, for example? Dance USA will be creating a peer community among its fellows. During the grant period, Fellows will be required to attend a few mandatory meetings, either in person or virtual. The fellowship period starts in fall of 2022 and ends in fall of 2023. Please note that travel and access costs for those meetings are covered by Dance USA. In addition to the required meetings and events, fellows will have the option to help design and/or participate in fellowship initiatives that explore the collective potential of the fellowship cohort. Details of the fellowship initiatives will be provided along with the announcement of the selections of the Dance USA Fellows in 2022. To be considered for this fellowship, all applicants must submit a letter of inquiry or LOI form. The LOI is due on Wednesday, December 8th, 2021 at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. If you have a steady internet access, you may follow the instructions on Dance USA's website to submit the LOI through our online application platform, Submittable. Submittable will require an email and your name to create an account. After you set up an account, then you can proceed with LOI. Not have steady internet access and would prefer to submit the LOI via a Microsoft Word document on your computer. On our website, you can find instructions to download the LOI form in the Microsoft Word format. Once you have done that, complete the application in Word and email the completed LOI to fellowships@danceusa.org by the due date on December 8th. In the LOI, you will be asked to provide some answers to questions about your Art for Social Change practice and a work sample. The letter of inquiry will go through a two-phase review process, first by a group of readers for initial evaluation and scoring, and subsequently the full panel. The readers and panelists will be made up of a diverse group of artists and dance professionals in our field from across the country. Panelists will understand that the quality of work samples, particularly on videos, may vary. Please don't worry too much about that. Work samples might be photos or documentations or other kinds of materials. By April of 2022, 60 artists will be invited to submit a full application. The full application is not going to be super long. It will ask for some additional questions about your practice. You will also be asked to submit longer work samples. Importantly, if you are one of 60 artists invited to submit the full application, you will be asked to provide reference letters of community members or community leaders whom can speak to your relationship to the community that your work takes place. And finally, you will be asked to submit a video statement about yourself, your community, and your practice. Artists do not need to complete a project as part of this fellowship, so you do not need to submit a budget. This is not project support, so no budget is necessary, neither in the letter of inquiry phase nor in the full application phase. Dance USA shares the belief that proposal writing should not be a barrier to artists accessing funding. With this in mind, we offer DFA applicants several options of support during the application period. The following options are open to all applicants. You don't need to be a Dance USA member to access these services. First, you can submit your narrative questions of the LOI or full applications in video or audio formats rather than a written one. Follow the instructions provided in the submission forms to submit the video or audio files. Applications with video or audio answer formats will be judged by the same criteria as fully written proposals. In addition to the application webinar, which is the video you're accessing right now, there will be 3 technical assistance calls conducted via Zoom. These calls are specifically dedicated for applicants to ask questions about the program requirements and selection process. Follow instructions on our website to RSVP to a session before the LOI due date. ASL interpretation and closed captioning will be available at the calls, and I will be there to answer your questions. Finally, please register to our free proposal coaching. Coaching sessions are 30-minute calls for the applicant to talk through their draft application with a proposal coach. Proposal coaches are hired consultants, experts in our field who can help you gain insights into connecting your proposals relevant to the program goals and objectives. Proposal coaches cannot advise you if your project will be selected. Coaching sessions are only offered until November 24th, 2021, 2 weeks before the LOI due date. Finally, DFA will accept submissions from applicants in any language. You may request to access the guidelines and applications in your preferred language. Upon receipt of the request, Dance USA will work with its contracted language service company to translate the DFA guidelines and application. Once you submit the application in your language, we will then translate it back into English and submit it to the online portal for you. If you have any translation or interpretation request, please reach out to me directly. My contact information is in the next slide. This is the end of the DFA application webinar. If you have any further questions, contact me either by email at fellowships@danceusa.org or call area code 202-725-4028. ASL and spoken language interpretation services are available upon request. Thank you.